Hi, welcome to another episode of Miss Erica's Crazy Costume Catastrophe. This week, Miss Erica is dressed like a bright light because we're going to learn about a Bible story where somebody encounters Jesus and there's a bright light. All right, let's get started. Next, I'm going to illuminate for you a little bit of our big Bible timeline. Remember, we're learning about the early church, how it grows and spreads all over the world. This week, we're looking at a man named Saul and the day he meets Jesus. This is a very important event in the life of the church and for the rest of the Bible. Kids, be sure to read Acts 9 as a family this week. Parents, you can find cool ideas to interact with God's Word and your kids in our parent email. Remember last week we learned about a man named Saul. He was a young man and he stood by while all of the people were killing Stephen, and he watched everybody's coats, and he was like happy about what was going on, that Stephen was being killed for following Jesus. And then in this story, actually, we see that he's going from town to town, banging on people's doors, finding men and women who are following Jesus, dragging them out and bringing them back to Jerusalem, where he puts them in jail. So this is a scary dude, and he does not like people who have made Jesus their king. One day, Saul decides to go to a town called Damascus. Here it is on a map. He hears that there are people there who have made Jesus their king, and so he is going there, and he's going to arrest those people, drag them back to Jerusalem, and put them in jail. But on his way to Damascus, something crazy happens. I got my friends Owen and Micah to read to us from Acts 9 so we can see what happens when Saul is on the road to Damascus.
I'm going to read a story from Acts 9. This is Saul, and this is the high priest, and these are who were traveling with Saul.
I'm going to read Acts 9, 1 to 9. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus whom you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing, so they led him by hand to Damascus.
Thanks, guys. Here we read about Saul on the road to Damascus. And all of a sudden, there is this bright light. And then standing in front of him is Jesus. The same Jesus that we read about in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The same Jesus that died on the cross. And the same Jesus that all of these people that Saul has been hunting have been following. That Jesus is standing in front of Saul. And Jesus asks him, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And Saul doesn't really know what to think. And so he's like, who are you? And Jesus says, it's me, Jesus. And then Saul is actually blind. I don't know if it was that bright light or just meeting Jesus for the first time, but Saul can't see. And so his friends lead him by the hand into Damascus. And there he spends 3 days not eating and just praying. He's probably trying to figure out what just happened. This is a game changer moment for Saul. So then, a little bit later in Acts 9, Jesus appears to a different man who lived in Damascus. His name was Ananias. He was a man who loved Jesus and had been following him for a little while. And Jesus says, "Hey, Ananias, I want you to go over on this street and you're going to find a man named Saul. I want you to lay your hands on him and pray for him so that he can see." And Ananias does not think that's a good idea. He's like, "Listen, Jesus, I don't know if you know this, but Saul is bad news. He's been going all around arresting people who are following you and putting them in jail." And Jesus says, "I know that, but I'm going to change him." Jesus says, "He is my chosen instrument, and I will use him to carry my name before Gentiles, before the children of Israel, and even before kings." Jesus knows that when Saul makes Jesus his king, that Jesus is going to change Saul. A little later in the Bible, we learn that Saul actually changes his name to Paul because he's so convinced that he's a different person now. When we make Jesus our king, Jesus changes us too. He takes all of the gross, mean parts of who we are, and he wants to change us into a boy or girl who loves Jesus and who loves to tell other people about who Jesus is, just like he did for Saul. The Bible calls this process of Jesus changing us sanctification. Sanctification is a very big word, but why don't you try to say it with me? Sanctification. Good job. I knew you could handle it. Sanctification just means Jesus changing us to be more like him. And you and I, we can't change ourselves to act better, to be a nicer person, or to be more like Jesus. If we could change ourselves, we wouldn't need Jesus, but we can't. And so that's why Jesus came to die, but he also came to change us, to make us more like him. This week, we're going to spend a few minutes praying and asking Jesus to sanctify us. That just means changing us to be more like him. First, I want you to find a paper bag, okay? If you can't find one, that's fine. Just grab a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle, all right? But if you can't find a paper bag, that's awesome. And some random markers. Okay, on one side of the paper bag, see how if you put your arm in, it kind of has two sides, okay? So on one side, I want you to draw you without Jesus. So if I was doing this for Saul, I would draw him like running around trying to kidnap people, putting people in jail, being a bully, not caring when people got murdered. I would draw all of those parts of Saul, okay? So if you were doing it for you, think about who you are when you're at your worst. When you're mean or disobedient or just kind of a jerk, draw that on one side of the bag. It's okay to be vulnerable and honest about kind of the worst parts of you. If it helps, you can have your whole family do it, even mom and dad. And I bet you could even help each other in a nice way. Draw some things about kind of the worst parts of you when you don't have Jesus. Okay, so do that together. Okay, here's mine. I thought it was only fair if I do it too. So you can see me without Jesus. I yell a lot. I'm not very kind with my words. I'm not patient with my kids or with Pastor Jonathan, and I'm just generally pretty cranky without Jesus. So then I want you to flip it over, and on the other side, you're gonna draw, but you're gonna draw while you're praying. So I want you to ask Jesus, "Jesus, what do you want to change about me?" And then I want you to draw yourself the way you think Jesus wants to change you. So like what you're praying Jesus would do for you, draw that person, all right? Okay, so here's mine. So you can see I wrote the words kind and patient and gentle because those are things I'm asking Jesus to make me. And then I drew myself being kind and giving my whole family a big hug. All right, guys, it's been so fun hanging out with you. Thanks for watching another episode of Miss Erica's Crazy Costume Catastrophe. This week on Sunday at 10:30 a.m., we'll be back for another family large group. So don't forget, parents, you can find the link in your parent email. I'm excited to explore Acts 9 with all of you. See you there. Bye.
Oh, it's time to light up the Christmas tree.